Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, North Motor City Madmouth. Glad to have everybody on tonight. I realize there's a college football game going on. No problem. We can certainly enjoy being on here right with y'all. So I want to welcome back Eric Katz. Welcome back, Eric.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Candy's on.
Always nice to talk. Boys of summer in the dead of winter, right? Where it's cold by you.
And fresh from Hawaii, boy, I'll tell you, everybody got Indy. This guy, Warren Brewster. Warren, thanks for being on.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I love having you on as well. And Barry Foot, my battery mate for the last 40-some years. Glad to have him on.
Thanks, Scott. Just remember, spring training is only about a month away.
Yeah, it's going to be an aggressive time for us. Candy and I will be really, really, really busy and talking game with Tony tonight. Hi, Tony.
Hey, what's up? How y'all doing?
All right. Well, Tony's going to be on Talking Baseball along with Eric on Saturday. We're going to have a special edition of Talking Baseball on Saturday. Hope you can join us there. That show figure will be about 10, 11 Eastern time. I'll keep you guys noted. We have a great football show that leads off beforehand. So with that said, let's get it going. We're going to talk about the Miami Marlins. Then we're going to get into their all-time lineup. The Marlins promote Gabe Kapler from assistant GM to general manager. Eric, what are your thoughts about Gabe being promoted?
I mean, I think they're reshaping the front office there. I think they're pretty content with the direction that they're heading with, which is built around prospects and youth there. And I know they've started to add a little bit of some veterans here, a little bit of veterans here and there. But I think that I think the Marlins, though, are heading in a good direction. I mean, last year they won more games than people predicted that they would win. So, I think it's just them doubling down on the direction they're heading with this front office regime.
Warren, what about Gabe Kapler? Do you know much about him? I know he was out with the Giants and out on the West Coast.
Yeah, he was the manager of the Giants, and then he managed the Dodgers for a couple of years. So he's a good baseball man. He did, had a good career, and I think he's going to help the Marlins. They brought him in to be the assistant GM. Now they've moved him up to the GM, and the Marlins they turned it around last year. They won a lot more games than, like Eric said, than people thought they would, and they finished the season winning 13 out of the last 17. So they're headed in the right direction. That's a tough division, but I think they're and they've always had good talent. They've had a very productive farm system.
Yeah, their manager Clayton McCullough did a whale of a job there. He really did. Yeah. Barry?
Well, Kapler was a major league player, a minor league player, a major league player, a major league manager, won 107 games with the Giants, manager of the year, assistant general manager. I would say he's probably very much overqualified to be a general manager of a big league team if you go by what these other general managers' backgrounds are.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Tony?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on everybody else. Clearly, like the Marlins like the direction. That's why you promote within the assistant. And he's won on every level. He's done. I like baseball lifers in certain positions, and he's a baseball lifer. He's done everything that needs to be done in baseball to lead up to this situation. So I think he's going to be good. And like Eric said, the Marlins won more games than expected next year, so they're in the right direction.
Candy?
He started out playing his baseball career as none other than a Detroit Tiger, Scott. He played for the Tigers, the Rangers, the Rockies, the Red Sox, the Yomiuri Giants, the Boston Red Sox again, the Milwaukee Brewers, Tampa Bay Rays, and then as a manager, he was with the Phillies and the Giants, and now as general manager. He was hired specifically to work under President of Baseball Operations Peter Bendix, formerly a member of the Tampa Bay Rays front office during Kapler's time with the team as a player back in 2009 and 10. His primary focus was on player development within the Marlins system, and he was involved in all areas. On November 3rd, he was promoted to general manager. So he's a lifer. He's done all of the different positions. He knows what it takes. And yes, the Marlins saw a great increase last year in just the vibe of the team, and as well as, more wins on the field. So let's hope it keeps going in that trajectory down in Miami for the Fish.
Well, let's stay with the Marlins for a moment. We're going to talk about their all-time lineup. Anybody that wants to add to it or think somebody's listening, this is what we do at this segment. So we're going to talk about the outfielders for them all time. Got Giancarlo Stanton, Juan Pierre, Gary Sheffield in the outfield. Then on the infield, you got Miguel Cabrera at third base, Hanley Ramirez at shortstop, Luis Castillo at second base, Derek Lee at first base, Josh Beckett is your starting pitcher. Your relief pitcher is Rob Nen, catcher Charles Johnson, DH is Mike Lowell, and the manager is Jack McKeon. All right, Eric, just give me one player that could be missing on that list.
Jeff Conine.
Okay. Hey, Jeff Conine, that's a good one.
That's Mr. Marlin right there.
Yeah, well, that's true. No, that's fair.
Christian Yelich.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Warren.
Well, the guy I liked but had a great career there was Dan Ugla. You know, he's kind of flying under the radar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Barry?
I think you guys covered most of the ones that I remember on their roster. Obviously, they've had some very good players through the years. 2 world championships, so you're supposed to have some good players along the way.
Yeah. So anybody that you can think of, or do you feel like they did pretty good?
I think you've hit the ones that I would be thinking of right here.
Okay. What about you, Tone?
Well, I had Christian Yelich, Candy. You took him from me. Did you say you did say Pudge Rodriguez at catcher, right? Obviously.
Charles
No,
Johnson.
That's the one you just took from me, but okay.
Okay. Yep. Definitely would go Pudge Rodriguez at catcher.
All right. Well, I'll put Chaz Chisholm in there, and then we'll go from there. How's that
There
sound?
we go.
Chaz Chisholm was a pretty good player. I liked his color and all that. So, in fact, I saw a lineup last year where you had Chaz Chisholm and Giancarlo Stanton in the same lineup for the Yankees, albeit a little ways away. Right, Todd. That's why it's always interesting to put some other pieces in there. The Detroit Tigers have signed right-handed pitcher Drew Anderson to a 1-year contract for the 26th season with a club option for 2027. The reason why I bring this thing up is I believe that he pitched overseas in Korea, if I may add. Eric, what are your thoughts about Drew Anderson? What do you know about this guy?
I don't. I know that he was pitching overseas, and he spent some time with the White Sox in 2020, and he also spent some time with. He was kind of up and down with the Philadelphia Phillies as well. He didn't really have success at the major league level, but I think that what the Tigers are gunning for is maybe have a turnaround there, where if he comes back to the States after learning what he did overseas, it might be able to translate. I've seen it happen, and so I think it's a low risk, high reward get, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Warren?
Well, I looked up his stats, and when he did pitch in the big leagues briefly, he was up and down and had with a couple of different organizations. And the difference I see from when he was pitching last year in Korea is he's starting to throw strikes. I think command's going to be his issue. He's going to have to command the ball and not walk people because he gives up more hits than innings pitched. So he's going to get hit. So if he keeps people off the base by not walking them, he could be successful. It's Detroit's going out on a limb, taking a shot at him.
Barry?
I believe, in my opinion, pitchers are the one position that you can get lightning out in a bottle with a guy who's really never had big league success, because you don't know. Maybe now he's got better command. Maybe he came up with a little trick pitch, a cutter, a splitter, or something. I think he had about 240 strikeouts or something last year in Korea. Right. So I'd say there's a chance. I mean, it's worth it's worth the investment. If he gives them some innings, he should be a good addition to their ball club.
Tony?
You can never have too much pitching, and with this being such a low risk, why not try it? I do still worry about his command because during COVID, Korean baseball was the only sports I can watch, and the strike zone was all over the place. So I don't know if I can trust him throwing strikes in the MLB, according to what I've seen in Korean baseball. But like I say, with the low risk, why not try it out?
Okay, Candy, I know you're going to give me some numbers. Go ahead. That's why I wait on you. So go ahead, give us some stats.
So he was drafted by the Phillies in the 21st round of the 2012 Major League Baseball draft. He played for the Phillies, the White Sox, the Rangers back in 2021. He signed a minor league contract with the Texas Rangers organization. On July 30th, they selected his contract and promoted him to the active roster. He made 9 appearances for Texas in 2021, going 1-1 with a 3.27 ERA and 9 strikeouts. On October 30th, he was released so he could pursue an opportunity in Asia. On November 3rd of 2021, he signed a $700,000 contract with the Hiroshima Toyo Carp of Nippon Professional Baseball. In 21 appearances in the Carp in 2023, he recorded a 2.20 ERA with 39 strikeouts across 45 innings. They announced on November 30th he would not be back, making him a free agent. On January 24th of 2024, he signed a minor league contract with the Detroit Tigers. In 9 appearances for the AAA Toledo Mudhens, he recorded a 3.86 ERA with 16 strikeouts and 1 save across 14 innings. On April 26th, Anderson was released so he could permitting him to sign overseas. He signed on April 27th of 2024 with the SSG Landers of the KBO League. In 24 starts, he registered a 11-3 record with a 3.89 ERA, 158 strikeouts over 115 and 2/3 innings. He also became the fastest KBO pitcher to reach 100 strikeouts in a season. On November 17th of 2024, he re-signed a 1-year, $1.2 million deal with them. After going 12-7 with a 2.27 ERA and 245 strikeouts, of course, across 171 and 2/3 innings. On December 8th of 2025, Anderson signed a 1-year, $7 million contract with the Detroit Tigers that includes a $10 million club option for the 2027 season.
With all those facts, do you have any opinion on this?
He's progressively gotten better and better. Let's only hope that with good coaching within the Detroit system, he'll get even better.
Yeah, the fact is he gave both Korea a little bit of time to readjust to big league baseball. That's for sure. All right, great stuff, Candy. Just kidding with you. All right, so let's talk about a game 7 starter must-win game. I'll give everybody some choices. I have some simple topics here. We're going to have Bob Gibson, Sandy Koufax, Jack Morris, Madison Bumgarner. Tony, who you got? Give me one. Game 7.
You know what? I'm gonna go with who I actually saw, and I'm gonna go Madison Bumgarner, just because I've seen it live. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nate.
No, that's okay. No, give me your explanation.
Yeah, just what I seen live. Him with the Giants was just amazing. Him actually starting games, closing games in the World Series. It was just amazing to see.
Barry?
I'd go with Koufax. Jeff, and the reason would be Jeff Torborg, who caught him, and I was coach under Jeff Torborg. He told me there was a year that every pitch, he gave up every pitch. Koufax would go all the way down with his fastball and not as far with the curveball or vice versa. The hitters all knew what was coming. He still won 27 games. So I think I'd have to go with Koufax. I mean, there's a couple, Gibson would be right there too, but I think I'd go with Koufax.
Okay, what about you, Warren?
Yeah, that's who I was thinking all along when I read that, was Koufax, because I got to see him when I was young and he was just dominating, And another pitcher though that he didn't have much of a long career, but Dwight Gooden when he was in his prime, one night when I was with the Cubs, he walked Dernier to lead off the game. Ryan Sandberg hit second. Dernier stole second on the first pitch. He threw by Sandberg. The ball went into center field. Dernier was on third. He proceeded to throw Sandberg 2 more fastballs. Gary Matthews came up, 3 fastballs in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Leon Durham came up, 2 fastballs right ahead. I mean, these guys are way late. They're all dead fastball hitters. The third fastball, he blew up Durham's bat all over the infield. Wally Backman came running in to throw him out at first. I mean, that was the most unbelievable thing I saw in my entire career. You know, he didn't last long, but when he was young, he was something else.
Yeah, he sure was. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought him up. All right, Candy.
Oh, I think I'm gonna have to go. I think I got to go Koufax too, just because from all that we've heard about how dominant he was. I'm gonna go Koufax.
Eric.
I'm going with Gibson. There's nobody. He wanted the ball every single time out, even on short rest, and he was just dominant when he was out there. I got to go with Gibson on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Gibson. I'm going to go Gibson too. Most intimidating pitcher. Guy's not afraid to go ahead and pitch inside to get in his way. He's going to let you know. Cybrewski, we're not covering the college football championship right now, but I'm sure many of us probably have a TV. We're watching. I'm paying attention. Our focus on it, at least for a little while, is baseball. But just want to address it. Yeah, I'm going to go Bob Gibson as well. All right, so here's another interesting one for all y'all. Okay, if you're going to give a 10-year contract in their prime, who are you going to give it to? You're going to give it to Tom Seaver, Steve Carlton, or Nolan Ryan? Tony?
I am going a long way. I had to go to my notes real quick. I am going with, I'm going Tom Seaver. No, I'm sorry. I'm going Steve Carlton. 208 wins, 4-time.
All right, so Steve Carlton, is that your final answer?
That is my final answer. I'm sorry. 208 wins, 4 times wins leader in the 10-year span. I'm definitely going with him.
What about you, Bear?
Love Lefty, teammate of Lefty, along with Warren, but I would go with Tom Seaver. I faced both of those guys and in their prime, and Seaver for me was a tougher. Of course, Lefty being left-handed, a little easier for me as a right-handed hitter, but I believe if I had to give somebody a 10-year contract, now if I knew Nolan Ryan was going to pitch to was 100, I might have a little different opinion, but. No, see if Seaver in his prime, hard to beat.
Okay, that's fair. Warren?
Yeah, I love Lefty. We were teammates for 6 years, but I agree with Barry. Tom Seaver in his prime was lights out. And the times he pitched, they gave a lot of the regulars. They didn't want to face him, so they gave them the day off. And we played what was called the bomb squad. The bomb squad guy. Tommy Hutton was made famous by what he did off Tom Seaver. Tommy Hutton was a backup first baseman, a defensive first baseman, but had like a .412 batting average off Seaver lifetime.
Wow.
But he in his prime, he was the best. He was definitely dominating.
Candy?
I'm going to go Nolan Ryan with his 7 no-hitters and his blazing fastballs.
Okay. What about you, Eric?
I'm going Nolan Ryan. I know the guy's durable. He's not coming off the mound, and I know I can count on him. I mean, that's a guy and he wants the ball every time out, and that's what I want. That's what I want out of an ace. I mean, it's not something you see in baseball really anymore.
Yeah, I'm going Nolan Ryan too. Okay, interesting. So let's go ahead and talk about Carlos Delgado, Hall of Famer. I don't know, but we'll find out from you guys. And gal, his average was 280 average. His hits were 2,083, 473 home runs, 1,512 RBI, and runs 1,241. Eric, do you think that Carlos Delgado could be a Hall of Fame guy?
No, and here's why. Part of it is just the era he played in, because he played with a lot of great outfielders during his era, and he also by the time he went to a bigger market like the Mets, he was constantly injured. He had a career a little bit better than he had a career a little bit better than Don Mattingly, but he was really only good for the middle portion of his career, because then the rest of it he was kind of very, very spotty. So I don't think he's going to get in, just based on the fact that he also played with a lot of great outfielders during his time in the game.
Candy?
He holds a Major League Baseball record for career home runs by a Puerto Rican player with 473. He's one of only 6 players in Major League history to hit 30 home runs in 10 consecutive seasons, becoming the 4th player to do so. During his 12 years with the Blue Jays, he set many team records. He also played for the Florida Marlins back in the day, and the New York Mets. On February 4th of 2015, he was elected into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Do I think he'll make the Hall of Fame for the Baseball Hall of Fame? No, I don't think so.
Warren?
No, I don't think he'll make it either. His numbers are just a little bit short of what some of the other Hall of Famers have put up. And he did have a great career, did some things that a lot of people didn't do. But his numbers just don't measure up to the people that are already in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Cyber to answer your question, I'm glad you're multitasking, watching the show and so forth. George, he's on medical leave for a while, so we'll let you know when the time comes back. Comes back once in a blue moon. All right, Barry, some thoughts about Delgado.
I think he makes the Hall of Fame of really good, but not the Hall of Fame of the Hall of Fame. I like him. I think, I guess the one thing I'd hold against him was the fact he didn't believe in standing up for the national anthem. But that's just me. But yeah, I think he's just on that border. Although, in the last 10 years, we put some guys in the Hall of Fame that really are in the Hall of just really good, not really the Hall of Fame. So,
right.
But I don't think he'll get in. Maybe the Veterans Committee, if they have enough guys who played against him and have some, real knowledge of him that maybe we don't. But I don't think his numbers are quite good enough.
Okay.
Agree. Hall of very good. He's missing some of those marks that just you normally look at as automatic. He's missing, he's right almost at 500. The 288 is he's right there to those benchmarks, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'm not putting him in there either. And I think one of the people that Scott Rowland, I think he's one of those Hall of very goods too, but I don't know if he was a Hall of Famer. So he's the one. So yeah, I'm not putting Carlos in there either. So all right, let's go ahead and talk about Albert Pujols. You think he could be unanimous selection to the Baseball Hall of Fame? He hit 296, his hits 3,384, home runs 703, RBI 2218, runs 1914. Let's start it off with you, Eric.
No, because they very rarely will put anybody in unanimously. I mean, the only guy they put in unanimously was Mariano Rivera, because there are plenty of Hall of Famers who had significantly better careers. Like take Hank Aaron, for example, that weren't in unanimously. They didn't even put Ichiro in unanimously, and that guy was Mr. Do-It-All. And they didn't put Ken Griffey Jr. in there unanimously either. So I don't think it's going to happen, just because the Hall of Fame almost never does it. And you got that one guy who will vote for somebody just to kind of, anger the rest of the world.
Yeah, you're right. When you put Ken Griffey Jr., I thought could get in. Derek Jeter was one I thought probably could have gotten in there too. Candy?
Yeah, I think it's very hard to get unanimous. I mean, but does he deserve it? Of course. He and Aaron are the only two players to amass 3,000 hits, 700 home runs, and 2,200 ribbies. Only two other players have surpassed 6,000 total bases. Pujols hit home runs off a record 458 different pitchers over the course of his career, and is 4th in career home runs, 5th in doubles. In an age when seasons of 150 plus strikeouts were the norm for sluggers, he never struck out 100 times in a season. But I don't think he gets unanimous because it's very, very, very rare that happens.
I agree. You're not going to get in that way. I get maybe 98, 99%, but not 100%. Everybody, have I called on everybody
Nope.
on this one?
I'm wrong.
Just making sure.
Nope. Warren and Barry and Tony yet.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, Warren.
Well, how can you not vote him in the Hall of Fame? I mean, he's obviously a Hall of Famer, but like everybody else has said, it just doesn't happen. I mean, think of Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ken Griffey Jr., all the great players that were never never got 100%. Weren't unanimous.
Right.
And he's deserving of being unanimous without question, but I don't think it'll happen either.
What about you, Bear?
I think there's a chance it might happen. You know, Rivera got in as a unanimous choice. Of course, that's a New York Yankee, and they always get the extra. But if he doesn't get in, doesn't get it unanimously voted in, they ought to take the vote away from the people who didn't vote him in, because he's definitely in that top 10 in the history of baseball offensive player. So, I think it would be, a just honor if he did get in unanimously.
Great stuff, Barry. All right, Tony.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I'll say no. Eric, we were told personally that a voter will not vote for somebody knowing that they will get in, just based off that alone, and give that vote to somebody else. So, no, I don't think so. I think he should, but there's always a hater in the bunch. Somebody's going to be like, no, he shouldn't be unanimous because such and such isn't unanimous.
Okay. All right, I enjoyed the opinions all the way around, let alone somebody unanimous. Now that sets me up for somebody that really is interesting, probably more known for his book, let alone his what he put in his body name, Jose Canseco. His average is 266, hits 1887, home run 462, RBI 1407, runs 1186. Hall of Fame, Tony. Jose Canseco.
No, even those numbers don't even make you a Hall of Famer. Yeah, he had a nice run, but even outside of the extracurricular, no, he wouldn't have been a Hall of Famer anyway. But it shows, imagine what he would have been without the extra juice. Geesh, he might have been an average player, if that, right? So, no.
Okay. All right, Barry.
No chance. No chance. Steroids eliminates him. We got a lot of guys we think did steroids. This is one we know did steroids, and I think you hurt baseball if you vote him in. And his career really, he had that nice run with Oakland. When I was coaching with the White Sox, I used to go out just to watch him and then the first baseman
McGuire
take batting practice, because they hit balls that you said, wow, they look like golf balls. But Hall of Fame, no, that ain't going to happen.
Okay, Warren.
No, I don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy. No, and he kind of thumbed his nose at baseball with the steroids, saying it didn't. He admitted it from day one. He never denied it, which is, I think it really hurt baseball at that time. And the thing I remember him most for was the ball that hit off the top of his head in Cleveland Stadium for the home run. To me, that was his claim to fame.
Yeah.
Candy.
No, I don't think so. I mean, not only did he use, but he threw everybody else under the bus and said everybody was using steroids. So, and his numbers just aren't that good. I mean, if we're not going to vote Don Mattingly in with his numbers, why would we vote Canseco in?
Yeah, Canseco's known for the book called Juiced, Juiced. I think I bought the book. I think I was halfway through it. I haven't finished it, but that's what he's known for. All right, Eric, you can close it out.
No, for a multitude of reasons. Number one, every team he was on, he was a headache. I'm sure he aged Tony La Russa at least 50 years. And number two, he violated the sanctity of the locker room. You don't do that. He decided to out his fellow players about who was potentially using, and he really hurt baseball. He comes out and says, "Oh, I used on day one." Writes not one but two books about it. I think I might have read one of them and thought it was stupid. But no, he's not getting in, and he had a good run, but no, the guy's a pariah to baseball, and there's no way, if the writers aren't going to forgive Pete Rose, they are sure not going to touch Jose Canseco.
Yeah, that's true. Some great examples there. All right, let's talk about a little bit of baseball history, shall we? And that's this. We're going to, on December 6, 2013, Robinson Cano signs a 10-year deal for $240 million with the Seattle Mariners. One of the few times that somebody pays the Yankees Eric, some thoughts about Robinson Cano?
Great Yankee, had a great run with them. But I remember when that contract decision went down, I thought he was nuts for going to that team because that team wasn't what they are now, which in position to really contend. They weren't contending back then, but Seattle just did it because they wanted a show pony in a circus. But again, the Yankees ended up being right for all the wrong reasons because he was only 5 years into that contract when all the steroid stuff came out, and he was never the same and practically burned himself out of baseball.
Yeah. Okay, Candy.
Yeah, I mean, he signed with the Yankees as a free agent in 2001. He played from 2005 to 2013, winning a World Series over the Philadelphia Phillies in 2009. But yeah, he signed that contract and played for them 2014 to 18 when he was traded to the Mets. He recorded 1,695 hits in the 2010s, and the most of any major league player during that decade. He's an 8-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, but he tested positive for drugs twice. Not once, twice. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Some thoughts, okay, Warren, about Robinson Cano.
Well, he was a good player, but that's the contract was crazy. That's when the contract started really getting out of hand, when they're giving guys like that at the towards the end of their career, and and I'm sure they knew he was using steroids to give him that kind of money. But they just I think they were just trying to make a point where they were outbidding the Yankees for his services.
Yeah, see, you know what? You nailed it right there, Warren. Say that again. Outbid the Yankees.
Outbid the Yankees for his services. Right. Yeah.
And how many times did people say that, Warren? Outbid the Yankees. Not much, right?
Once.
Exactly.
That's about it. Yeah.
It's called the GMTA theory. Great minds think alike, Warren, and you did nailed it. All right, Barry, some thoughts about Robinson Cano.
Well, Tucker and Bichette should be very happy about the contract that he got, because now these people are finally understanding you might as well spend that money in 3 or 4 years, get these guys off your roster when they can't play any longer. I love Pujols. I think he had a negative WAR his last 4 or 5 years on that long contract, and that's why these teams that can't afford it are paying these huge salaries and then making them abbreviated salaries. The Yankees would love not to have Stanton on their roster right now, but they're stuck with him. And, it really screws up your long term. I think it's going to be the same with all these guys, Harper and all these guys that have these contracts. Without drugs after 35, it's a miracle if you're anywhere near the player you were. So these modern day, the players today should be thankful that those 10-year contracts went up. So now they can get 40 to 60 million on these real abbreviated short contracts.
Well, the bottom line is, Barry, you said it too. I mean, the back end of the contracts would kill you. That's what happened with Pujols, and Miguel Cabrera wasn't nearly the same player on the back end of his contract. And the list goes on and on. The deeper you get into that contract, that becomes bad for the club. Early on, it's okay. Tony?
When it comes to Robinson Cano signing with the Mariners, it really ticked me off when he did it. I guess you could say he got outbid. He wanted 1 extra year. I didn't like the narrative that he was spinning, that he wanted to be taken care of. I don't think there's an organization that take care of their older players more than the Yankees. We was bringing Mariano Rivera. I say we, like I'm part of the organization. They was bringing Mariano Rivera along on 1-year deals towards the end of his contract. Basically, let us know if you want to keep playing. But that was the start of Rock Nation and Jay-Z pissing off Scott Boras too. So they were trying to get every penny that they could. And I remember that being a big narrative with that. But like Eric said, the Yankees end up being right for all the wrong reasons. And it worked out in our favor in a sense. But those are the things I remember about that. I remember that being a Rock Nation deal. And I remember Robinson Cano really kind of turned his back on the Yankees as an organization. And I didn't like that as a fan.
Well, now, the amazing thing is not many of them did, but he had to do that. All right, so let's talk about one of the World Series heroes, a guy that I got to work with in Miami named Miguel Rojas. He did sign a 1-year deal to return to the Dodgers. Some thoughts about Miggy. I think this guy will eventually manage in the big leagues because I can tell by when I spoke with him at the Marlins that this guy had a mindset to manage and he's a leader. And what he did in the World Series is remarkable. But hey, he gets another year with the Dodgers. Eric, some thoughts about Miguel Rojas.
Anybody who plays for the Dodgers ends up, especially if they're facing a Canadian team in a winner-take-all game, has a way of making an iconic moment happen. I think Miguel Rojas had the modern-day Blue Monday. I'm sure people of a certain age remember that when Monday had the home run off Steve Rogers against the Montreal Expos at the time, as Rojas did off Jeff Hoffman. I think
Right.
I think it's great. You get to parade the World Series hero a little bit. The Dodgers can clearly do what they want, and I think that, this is it for him this year. I think he's not going to play every day. I think he's going to, be a mid-series guy, come in every now and then, maybe a defensive replacement, maybe pinch hit every so often. But, but it's pretty much just they're doing it just so he can retire, a Dodger. And then I think eventually he's going to become a manager. Somebody will hire him to become a manager because it seems like players are getting hired right after they retire to manage. And I mean, Cleveland made it work with their guy right now, who's had them consistently contending. And so, we'll see though. But I know he's stated that I know, Scott, from your conversation with him, you've stated that he wants to manage. But good for the Dodgers for him to have his victory lap though of being the modern Blue Monday.
Yeah, no, I think he's definitely managing material. You're right. Okay, Candy, you obviously know about Miggy.
On December 5th, 2025, the Dodgers re-signed Rojas to a 1-year, $5.5 million contract. Rojas also announced that it would be his final season as a player, and he would remain with the Dodgers in a front office role after the season. So he's already got that mindset. He wants to do his final lap. He wants some of these players are doing that now. They're announcing before the season so they can have like one last hurrah at the different stadiums that they go to. He'll get a feel for, the different stadiums, and then he'll move into the front office role, or one of the front office roles within the Dodgers organization. So kudos to him, because yes, he definitely, when he was down here, in fact, I think he played manager for a day one of the games we were at. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, that was when I talked to him and started picking his brain about that. He was actually with Don Mattingly, who was a manager at the time, Warren,
Yep.
and he let Miguel Rojas manage. And that's when I started talking to him. I didn't put it on tape, but every now and then you don't always put a thing on tape because you're off guard. But some of the guys, they don't even care; they'll just talk to you. And Rojas was one of the most approachable people that you'll ever meet, and he definitely can certainly treat the media pretty well, for sure. But what are your thoughts there, Warren?
Well, I think kudos to the Dodgers for rewarding him, because he had a big chunk of Dodger history with that home run last year in Game 7. And then they're making room for him in the future in the front office or back on the playing field as a manager. I'm sure he's ready to manage. He was like take a victory lap and see what the next part of life brings to him.
Barry?
Well, I think the affection his teammates have for him tells you a lot about who he is as a person and a player. So, I think, and we're in an environment now where a lot of these Latin guys are getting opportunities they didn't have before to manage. So, I think he would probably be a good manager. It seemed to me. Plus, he's a middle infielder, has to understand the game. So, I think it's all set up for him, and I agree with Warren. And good for the Dodgers to reward somebody who was, really was, had not played much going into that World Series, and then did a great job and helped to win the World Series.
Tony?
You hit that kind of home run, you deserve at least one more year to get paid by that team. It's interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see him getting to the managerial role. I'm sure he's going to be close to Dave Roberts probably more than ever this season to learn more about the actual being the manager and dealing with personalities and stuff on that level. So, hey, man, he deserves it. Dodger hero. Who knows? Dave Roberts might ride into the sunset after they run off a couple of these championships the way they're going.
Eric, was there anything you wanted to add to this? I thought you were.
I was going to say for his opportunity to potentially manage, he can go ahead and thank Ozzie Guillen and Felipe Alou for blazing that trail to make it possible. No matter what you say about, no matter what Ozzie Guillen has coming out of his mouth.
Yeah, you seem to have quite a bit coming out of his mouth. That's a good point. All right, we'll talk about another baseball lifer named Mike Schilt, left the San Diego Padres. And that was short-lived retirement because now he's with the Baltimore Orioles as well. So he has a new role. Some thoughts, Eric, about Mike Schilt?
Good manager, especially with the Cardinals, and did so with the Padres. I think at this point, like I think like Don Mattingly, he doesn't want to be the guy overseeing the coaching. I think he wants to be doing the work. I know we've seen that. I've seen that over the years in football where certain coordinators are, they are a head coach for a bit, but really don't like being a head coach, and they go back to coordinator and position coach just because they like being down and doing the teaching. I think that's what Schilt really wants to do at this point. He's always been known as a pretty good manager, but I think right now, I think he'd rather just coach and be out in the field, kind of like what Don Mattingly did with the Toronto Blue Jays after he left the Marlins, and now what he will be doing with the Philadelphia Phillies. So I think it's just a matter of some people like doing the work, not overseeing the work.
Great points. Okay, Candy.
Yeah, some people don't want the spotlight of being a manager, and in this day and age of win now, they don't want all that pressure. So they really want to be in there. And let's face it, you don't want to be a teacher because a teacher doesn't get paid anything. So why not go into baseball and teach, instruct your players? I think that's kind of cool. The new coordinator of instruction in their minor league system. I think it gives them, you can really affect a man's life in that early stage of minor league. And I think that's what he wants. That's what he wants to do. And I think that's neat.
Warren?
Well, I was really surprised when he stepped down at San Diego as the manager because, he's been having success and they were getting closer to getting every year. They're getting closer to the Dodgers, and they give the Dodgers a good run for the Western Division every year. But then they said he was burned out, and a lot of there is pressure. Managers got way more pressure, and if he's happier coaching or teaching the game, a manager doesn't really get to teach the game that much. He kind of oversees all the coaches and lets them do the work. And I mean, from what I gather, he wants to do the work. He doesn't want to oversee everything. He wants to be able to instruct.
Barry?
Oh, I agree. What I read about, and he's a North Carolina guy, so I've actually been at a couple events with him, and I just don't think he liked that pressure. I mean, you're in a pressure cooker. Let's face it, he walked away from millions of dollars, so there was something there that he didn't like about it because they weren't getting ready to fire him. I think he was well liked in the organization. He had been an assistant GM there along with being manager, so. He just, I think you guys have hit the nail on the head. He wants to be on the field where there's less pressure. And if he does a good job there, he can have a real effect on the big league club by helping these young players develop.
Tony?
Yeah, just to kind of follow what all you're saying. Yeah, the pressure. And think about the idea of your job is to beat the Dodgers. Like your job is to best the Dodgers every year and be in their division. That's definitely a lot of pressure. And just to follow up on the teaching, yeah, he probably likes the grunt work of baseball opposed to dealing with the personalities of these millionaires and stuff where he can go to the minors and he can get to people who really want to listen and they really are still trying to learn. It's a different level in that. So I think he's going to enjoy just the pureness of just baseball again.
If you ever looked at a recent baseball roster, you're going to find it's not more than just coaches, like 5 or 10 other extra names on there to complement the main coaches. And that's where a lot of these guys are starting to fit in and where their staffs are. So more power to them. I think he did get burned out in San Diego, and he had a decent run with the Cardinals too. And he got another opportunity to resurface in San Diego and still did pretty well over there. All right, two more tops that are really doing really well tonight. So
Scott, I was gonna add, he can also give new Orioles manager Craig Albarnez kind of more of a lens there. And also, I think burnout is codename for I'm tired of dealing with Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, and also general manager AJ Preller. I think that's what's codename for.
no, that's an excellent point. Well, remember, I don't know if anybody knows what the actual who came up with let's see if anybody remembers what coach in any other sport came up with the actual word burnout. Anybody remember?
Dick Vermeil.
That's it.
Yeah.
Who came up with that one?
Dick Vermeil.
Yeah, Dick Vermeil.
The guy cried. The guy cried when he said he was done.
Yeah, Dick Vermeil did. I mean, but you're right. Who are the other ones that you
Two
mentioned on the Padres?
Of who he was tired of dealing with?
Yeah.
Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, and also general manager AJ Preller, who's been able to hire and fire managers more than George Steinbrenner.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, but Dick Vermeil's the one who went ahead and coined it for that great
Twice.
point. Yeah. And he came back and ended up winning a Super Bowl, go figure. But he took a break until he came back to the Rams. So I know Vermeil was an emotional guy for sure. Manny Machado, I can see where he'd get on your nerves a little bit.
Vermeil also said he was burned out with the Rams after that Super Bowl, and then eventually he came back and went to the Chiefs later on.
Yeah, he definitely used to take burnout to a new level. Okay.
He did.
I get everybody on this one? Just want to make sure. Okay, good. Okay, Davey Concepcion. Here's a guy from the past. Big Red Machine. Hall of Famer, yes or no? Let me give you some numbers. 267 on the average, 23-26. Hits, 101 home runs, 950 yard ribbies, 993 runs. Okay, Eric, some thoughts about Davey? No,
I don't think his numbers are. He was a good player, but I think Davey's problem was he gets overshadowed by a lot of people in that lineup. He was a good player in his own right, but I just don't think his numbers add up, especially during the 70s. I mean, you got a lot of great players during the 70s, and I don't think he never had a 100 RBI season. So that's another thing that's going to really preclude you from getting in the Hall of Fame. And his best year was, the year where in 1978 where he had 170 hits, which he was a good player, but not Hall of Fame worthy in my opinion. I mean, I also during that time too, he was playing in an era where shortstop was, Luis Aparicio was out there. There was a lot of great players at his position, and also I just don't think his numbers are Hall of Fame worthy. I think he was just in the Hall of Good at best.
And believe it or not, years ago, over at Al Lopez Field, I interviewed Davey Concepcion, and I'll tell you, he was quite a person too. He really, really is. I don't know if you got to know him, Warren and Barry, but he was a really good guy and a real big part of that Big Red Machine. I would actually say yes to him going in the Hall of Fame because he was a team player for what he had done with the Reds, and his numbers were adequate, but his defense wasn't too bad from what I remember either. I'm going to put him yes. What about you, Warren?
Well, I'd say no. He was a good player, very good player in his era, but I don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy.
Okay. Barry?
No, I'm with Warren. He's a good player. I played against him for 8 years and saw him a lot. So, he's a good player, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
Okay. Well, I mean, like you said, how many of these other guys got in there were Hall of Good? So if Roland could get, I would at least give Davey Concepcion a shot. But no, I appreciate where you're coming from. A lot of guys are borderline that do get in. But again, I appreciate everybody on the panel, let alone the fact I got two guys that played the game and managed it. So how can I definitely, if you say no, I'm definitely going to pay more attention to what you guys have to say. What about you, Tony?
I'm going to say no. Is at no point, if you look throughout his career, you just looked at him as just a great player, just solid to very good. Like you say, never had over 100 RBIs, most hits 170. And I get the glove, but we need a little more offensively from him.
Andy?
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I mean, he's in he played for 19 seasons, but he shares a record franchise with Barry Larkin with the record of playing 19 seasons in a Reds uniform. But his numbers just aren't where I think they need to be. His batting average was 267 over his career with 2,326 hits, 101 home runs, and 950 runs batted in. He played from 1970 to 1988.
Well, he has longevity at least. Okay, maybe not a Hall of Fame vote, but he's got longevity. We'll see whether or not the Veterans Committee might think otherwise. And again, we probably think that on Lou Whitaker and a lot of other borderliners as well. All right, final topic of the night happens to be the featured topic of the night. Dodgers are forcing MLB to consider a salary cap, and here's why. You talk about Kyle Tucker's numbers. He signs a 4-year, $240 million deal. That contract, obviously, with the Dodgers. The Blue Jays offered the free agent a 10-year, $350 million deal before he signed with the Dodgers. Per John Heyman, the average value is $60 million. So there you go, Eric. This is what you're talking about. Let's talk about Kyle Tucker.
Well, number one, I don't think anybody should be making more money than Aaron Judge, who's won AL MVP 3 of the last 4 years and has been averaging 50 plus home runs a season. The fact that some of these guys are making more than Aaron Judge, it's making the Yankees look cheap on that contract. But I think that this is completely out of control. The Dodgers have a financial arm that's bigger than anything baseball has ever seen. Small market teams can't compete in it. So if Dodger fans are going to be complaining about how there won't be baseball in 2027, I have news for you, everybody of Los Angeles. Look at your own team, which seemingly can outspend the 29 other teams in baseball. There is a problem, and originally for the longest time I was against the cap. However, no baseball player should be a billionaire. It's not possible. We freaked out when Nolan Ryan became the first millionaire in the sport, but a billionaire, this is out of control. There needs to be something. The luxury tax to the Dodgers is a joke. They can absorb it. They are the equivalent of what GM has been for the longest time, which is too big to fail. This is out of control. There has to be a cap because small market teams can't compete. So while the Dodgers are making small market teams their personal farm system at the major league level, those small market teams, a la the Milwaukee Brewers, are kissing a key player goodbye every single year because the television deal that they have, all thanks to their previous owner, the McCourts, who completely screwed up that organization so badly that he made Art Modell look like a competent NFL owner. This is nuts. There has to be changes. You cannot do salary floor, salary ceiling because they're going to find a way around it. There has to be a cap. The NFL, where baseball went wrong was where they should have had the cap before they did free agency. The NFL was smart during the 90s to do that, not granting the players free agency until they put a cap in place. Now the players may be against it because, less money for them. However, small market teams do not have the television deal nor the market size that Los Angeles has. There has to be a cap, period. If you're going to miss baseball in 2027, I'm going to throw your team back in your face because they're the ones causing this destruction. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Well, you know what? We used to have a called Eric's Rant. And I'll tell you, it's really good. You're going to have to come up with another one. In fact, beginning of the next show, Eric, you're going to send me your rant of the week. But this one actually is pretty good. And boy, I'll tell you nailed it. I wonder if anything else had anything to follow you after this one. Go ahead, Candy. You don't need stats on this one because Eric said a mouthful.
It's a hard act to follow there.
Yeah, it really is. And you get to do it.
The problem with the Dodgers.
From the top rope.
Yes. The problem with the Dodgers spending like this is, yes, last year the Mets spent a whole heap load and they didn't make the World Series. The Brewers didn't spend and yet they were in the playoffs. But for the majority of it, if you have a payroll like this, you're going to you're going to outdo all the other teams, and you have an unfair advantage. And I get it, but there are teams that don't have the owners' deep pockets like this. And until you put a salary cap on, it's just going to be hard. Just going to be hard for the small market teams.
Go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. You know, it makes it small. The split between the big market teams and the small market teams is going to continue to get bigger, especially when you're allowed to spend that kind of money with no salary cap for the players. But I can remember the first year, my rookie year in spring training, Marvin Miller came in and they were adamant that the baseball players will never have a salary cap. So they've always negotiated on that as the number one thing in negotiations. So, you know, but where does it stop? You know, we've said that way back in the 70s and 80s, and it continues to grow. It's mind boggling when a guy can sign a 4-year contract for $240 million. That's $60 million a year is just outlandish.
Yeah, that's a lot. Barry?
We thought it was.
Well, I think it's very interesting that there's expectations that the players should have to control what the owners spend. I hope they walk out and stay out for a year if they're going to try to do a salary cap. I think it's on the owners. It's their fault. They want to spend the money. And baseball, in actuality, spends the least amount of money on its own salary, percentage-wise, of the three major sports. So, you know, the Dodgers have an advantage, no question about it. Yet baseball has the highest percentage of different teams going to the World Series, to playoff World Series, than any other sport. So, you know, that certainly looks bad because the Dodgers spend so much money. But I hate it with the thoughts that the players should be expected to control the owners. I just don't like that idea at all.
Tony?
I'm a Yankees fan. I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Eric, how dare you say those things? Hey, man, spend the money. Spend the money. If you're going to own a team, if you want to compete, first of all, baseball is a unique sport where the big money doesn't always win. You know, the Royals won the World Series. They went to 2 World Series.
That was
We've
one
seen the Rays
example.
World Series. We've seen these things happen. So money does not equate to winning when it comes to baseball. Like you said, Candy, just last year, the Mets didn't even make the playoffs. That's the money isn't a thing. I don't think they need a salary cap. I think that ownership should actually consider paying their players, because guess what? When you spend money and you pay these players, you make the money back. You're making money in merch. You're making money on concessions. You're making money. You can raise your ticket prices. You could do things to make money. You know why the Dodgers are able to spend the money? They've already made the $700 back off Ohtani. Spend the bread. Money comes back to winners. That is just a thing. That is a known fact. Also, the Kyle Tucker deal is a good deal because, like you said earlier, Barry, why spread that money out? And now you have somebody in year 13 that's 42 years old, like Albert Pujols, and he's batting 200, where you can have that money front loaded. He can get paid. You guys can win. And when he's older and he's on the downside of it, you guys are done. Cut bait. I like the deal. I like that the Dodgers are. I like dynasties also in sports, and I like that they're trying to force people, hey, if you don't want to spend the money, we will.
Well, it's amazing. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, okay. Talkative Tony. Let's keep this in mind. Yes, I may be a Yankees fan. However, if you're looking at how slanted the field is, you look at the Dodgers have already won the past 2 World Series. The Royals going to the World Series those 2 years are one-offs. Has a small market gone to the World Series since? No. The Mets, well, you know, anything the Mets, we should coming from that side of the world. Anything that the Mets can do generally blows up in their face. That's just been the existence of their franchise since after 1986. But here's the thing: the Yankees, no team in baseball has the financial arm that the Dodgers have. Yes, they got a little sweetheart deal because Major League Baseball felt bad for them after Frank McCourt went bankrupt and then had probably one of the more expensive divorces in human history, maybe next to Michael Jordan. But you have to understand that not every team has those television deals. Even with a new owner, you're going to find though that they're not going to crazy spend money. They are going to spend what the business makes them. Now, if they buy a team and their team is a loser, I promise you, most of the planet's not going to want to go to those games. Their stadiums are going to be half empty, while everyone else, particularly the ones near the coast, are going to be swimming on the beach and still moving along quite nicely in life. The television deals are disproportionate. This is already out of control. Bud Selig said it was getting out of control, and knowing Bud Selig didn't do a thing about it because that's just what Bud Selig does. Well, but this is out of control, and now baseball is going to pay the price for it in 2027.
You can't be mad people want to go to the Dodgers. Edwin Diaz could have got the same deal with the Mets. He didn't want to go there.
He got less money with them. He got less money with the Mets.
The Mets said they were willing to negotiate. He did not want to go back to the Mets.
Who would want to go to the Mets anyway?
Kyle Tucker could have gotten big money. He could have went back to the Mets. Nobody people want to. You can't get mad that people want to go to the Dodgers. I think it's twofold. They're offering the money, and it's LA. I'm sorry, Cincinnati. It gets cold. I'm sorry, Detroit. I'm sorry, these places.
You can afford heat. You can afford heat in a northern climate. I assure you, with that contract, you could probably afford a giant heater that will heat your entire room upon arriving home for the evening. And besides, they're only going to be using that heater for maybe a couple months out of the season if you're in a northern weather city, from April till maybe Mayish. But I promise you, LA has a financial arm that is bigger than anyone in baseball. Businesses are going to spend money with what they make, not from their personal finances, unless you're Peter Seidler, who was spending money like a drunken sailor because he was dying. But but again, they have the financial muscle. No one else in baseball has that financial muscle. The field is slanted against a lot of other teams, and the businesses are going to spend what they make, unless you're the Pirates, who don't spend anything at all.
The only thing I'll say is when I covered the Mets spring training last year, Steve Cohen convinced me that team had a shot to win it all because you had who'd you have that middle of that infield? You got
Pete Alonso,
Soto, and all those guys. And then you leave. I thought and they don't even make the playoffs. Go figure. So I have to ask Warren and Barry a question. You see Tony and Eric going at it, okay? And you guys are seeing the new generation. What are your thoughts about the banner back and forth with these two guys?
It's great. It's a younger generation, how they feel, how the game's headed.
This is the future of our network, by the way, with Tony and Eric. These two. Eric's always looking to find a way to find somebody to bet with. That's Barry. I'm telling you, Eric is. You talk about brash or what? This kid's brash, and he's smart, and he knows it. He can go back now. What are you, 30 years going on 130? Eric, with your baseball knowledge, he had me on the phone 3 hours on a Saturday night, and my arm nearly fell off talking to this guy.
You tell your buddy Barry Bloom that he still owes me a round.
Don't worry. You tell him yourself when I bring him back on. He will. Come on. Barry Bloom's a good friend of mine. I know Warren and Barry, you know him pretty well. I talk to Barry once in a while. So I think we pretty much covered anything. Any final thoughts about what we've done tonight? Great show tonight. I'm trying to do whatever I can right now to make sure we talk about the Hall of Fame. We'll do a little bit more World Baseball Classic when we break this thing up in about a couple of weeks. But Eric, some final thoughts real quickly.
I think that the game is heading in the wrong direction with what the Dodgers are doing. They have more financial might than any other team in baseball, including the Yankees and the Mets. Now they are able to defer money and be able to bring these guys in. Granted, deferring money is nothing new in the sport. It's part of the reason why the Arizona Diamondbacks had to be sold. But but again, there needs to be some sort of checks and balances here, because the small market teams are in the have-nots, and baseball is right now in a place where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, 2027 is going to be ugly. That's why I'm going to enjoy as much spring training with Candy as I can, because there's a few stadiums that she hasn't been to here in Florida, and it's harder to get to all of them in Florida than it is here in Arizona, because they're all bunched together within about an hour away. Unless you go back in the day when you had Yuma, Arizona, and you had Tucson, that was different. So, Warren, some closing thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean the games. It's going to be a tough negotiation in 2027. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. So enjoy 2026 while we can.
Exactly. I know I have no WBC topic. Barry, you're laid back, and what are your thoughts? I mean, I'll tell you, you get better with every show because Barry just sits there and listens, and then he chimes in. You talk about his style, cater for what this guy does. He's a legend on and off the field. Some thoughts about what we talked about tonight, Barry.
Well, I agree that you need some sort of checks and balances, but it really is the onus is on the owners to govern themselves, not expect the players to agree to a salary cap. I'm just not a salary cap guy, but I think there needs to be some balance. But there's a lot of small market teams that are putting more money in their pocket at the end of the year than large money teams, so they're not spending any money, and that's problematic. When you get a team like even Tampa Bay, makes money. I mean, there's a team you look at them and they got an evaluation of $2 billion because they're making money. So it is there is an imbalance going on. But baseball, normally, you think about it, they were one base running mistake away from the Blue Jays winning this World Series. So it's not that far out of kilter, but I'm just not a big Tucker guy either. I don't see him as being a superstar type player either. So
yeah, I think that people are just exhausted about the Dodgers spending, and I use the word exhausted. What they're spending, Tony.
Yeah, we just can't be overreactionary. We can't, like Barry said, you zoom out an inch away from the Dodgers not even winning. And then if whatever they do in the offseason doesn't even matter as much. Also, when it comes to ratings in all sports, ratings are up when you have a dominant team. That's just a fact. People love dynasties. For one, you either like cheering for them or you want to see them go down. So the Dodgers and anybody else's will be fine. And I don't even think we'll get a salary cap because, like Barry said, those cheap teams, they don't want a floor.
Okay, well,
None of them do.
We'll let Candy sum it up and finish it with the station break. Great stuff, everybody. We appreciate all the candor, and I try to keep a mix between the old, the Hall of Fame, and I think everybody did a fine job with the balance that we try to create this evening here. Go ahead, Candace.
Well, based on the amount of salaries as of a couple days ago, the Marlins were at 100.9, and the difference is the Dodgers are at 413.5. That's a huge discrepancy. Like, that just makes I think they will eventually need to go to some kind of cap. Otherwise, you're going to find the same old. These small market teams. Although I give some of the small market teams, because they're still drawing crowds. The Milwaukees of the world are drawing crowds. And yes, they're putting product on the field that's competitive. They just haven't been able to get over that hump. So hopefully they will be able to draw the talent that they need to compete, because that's the one thing that you don't want to see. If it starts to get too one-sided and they're not competitive, then it's different. That's not good for the league either then. Okay, station break. South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganraw. Talks about his 40-plus years in the industry and how it has evolved and changed. Old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today, however you like. If you want to buy it, actual physical copy, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. If you want the audio version, that is also available at this time on Audible, numerous places, so go check it out. Again, the name is Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, if you see that red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. Please do so. And then like or share us with all your friends and family. I'm going to put the QR code up in the corner so you can just scan that, and that'll take you right to our YouTube channel, and you can hit the subscribe button. Then turn on the notifications so you're notified every time we go live so you don't miss any episodes. Looking forward to more great programming. Scott, back to you.
All right, Candy. Yeah, I've got great points, Candy. We have a lot more great programming on the way. I'm bringing in some new blood as well. So it'll be pretty interesting to go along with the people that we have week in and week out that we appreciate, that we can count on. Baseball's a show I take to my heart. Barry knows it probably better than anybody because we both have been baseball lifers. And I love this show more than anybody can imagine because I played the game as a catcher, and the fact that I have my own baseball show, let alone two of them, to me is important. So, and when you have a good group that understands the game as much as we really do, that's even better as well. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. But before we do that, let everybody know how to get a hold of you, Tony.
Oh yeah, Talking Game 1 on all social media, YouTube, Tony Talking Game. Wednesday 3:30, you'll see an episode of Talking Game. Wednesday night, you'll see me here on the Sports Exchange. Saturday morning, we'll be on Talking Baseball, and yeah.
Okay, Warren.
I can be reached at Brewster, BRUSSTAR40
Okay, Eric.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, and you can check out my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I'm writing about all things Milwaukee Brewers and the rest of the league. And if you think I don't like your team, I probably don't.
You're really consistent with that. I think we lost Barry. Where is my brother Barry? See anywhere out there? We having some.
No, I don't see him.
He's having some technical difficulties, I think, at this point. But you can always find him here on Monday nights on baseball, except for next week when we will be taking the night or the week off, as we will be covering the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama.
Okay, well, that does do it for this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. On behalf of Barry Foote, Eric Katz, Candy Epling, Warren Brewster, and Tony, my name is Scott Morgan, Motor City Madman. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks. God bless everybody. Warren, once again, job well done. Barry, well done. Eric, well done. Candy, well done. As well as Tony, well done. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll catch you the next time. God bless. See you 2 weeks from now.
All right, thank you.
Have a great night. Bye now.
See you.